In the heart of fast-paced Mumbai lies a world barely touched by progress. It's called Dharavi. It's only 2.5 square kilometers, but it's home to more than 1 million people. Here, every inch of space has a price, not for luxury, but for the scarcity of space to breathe. Dharavi isn't just a slum. It's an alternative way of life. A city within a city. A narrow network of alleys serves as thoroughfares. Houses are stacked close together, and the humid air smells of garbage, wood smoke, and the constant grind of life. Behind the visible limitations, an underground economy beats strong. Thousands of people work in cottage factories, making leather, ceramics, clothing, even fast food. Behind the narrow windows, you can hear the clatter of hammers, the sound of sewing machines, and the laborers' almost unaccountable breath. But this life comes at a high price. Poor sanitation and lack of access to clean water make diseases like diarrhea and tuberculosis part of the routine. Open water channels serve as places for bathing, washing, and disposing of waste, all in one stream. For children, their childhood is often overshadowed by adult responsibilities. Some of them never get to go to school. Not because they don't want to learn, but because they have to help their families earn a living from an early age. Dharavi is a portrait of extreme human resilience. Those who live here don't beg, they work. They don't give up, they persevere. Despite living in the shadow of the metropolis, their voices are rarely heard in the discourse of progress, as if they are just the backdrop to other people's dreams. But the question is, how long will this resilience continue to be tested? How long will they have to pay the price of a city's growth that only provides space for a few? Mumbai is known as the city that never sleeps. But behind the hustle and bustle of the day, the night holds an invisible power, an underworld driven by money, fear, and blood. This is the world of the Mumbai Mafia. Not just a story from a Bollywood movie. This is a reality that has been rooted for decades. One of the most feared and legendary names, Dawood Ibrahim. A name that is familiar to every Mumbai resident. An international fugitive who built a criminal empire across borders, and to this day, still haunts the dark history of this city. D Company, the organization he formed, controls various sectors of crime. Extortion, illegal gambling, smuggling, drug trafficking, to money laundering in the entertainment industry. Nothing is too small, nothing is too big. If it can generate power, they will enter. In 1993, Mumbai was rocked by a series of bomb blasts that killed hundreds of people and injured many more. This attack, believed to be controlled by Dawood's network, was a turning point. The city realized that the threat did not only come from outside, but grew from within, silently, for years. However, despite the terror, the underworld did not die. It only adapted. The mafia did not always appear with guns and fierce faces. They could wear neat suits, speak politely, sit side by side with politicians and businessmen. Their power extended to property projects, government tenders, even the film production process. Not infrequently, blockbuster films were born from funds sourced from dark businesses. When the law was bought and fear was sold, the common people became the victims. They were forced to give up their homes for mafia-funded projects. Small traders were blackmailed for security. And witnesses, if they dared to speak out, often disappeared without a trace. Many asked, how could a network this large have survived for so long? The answer is simple, because the system allowed them to survive. Collusion, corruption, and fear formed an invisible fortress that was difficult for fair laws to penetrate. Mumbai continued to grow, but its shadows also grew longer. The underworld was not just a legend of the past. It is part of the pulse of this city, silent but real. And the question, like a wound that never heals, who really controls this city? Mumbai is called the City of Dreams, a place where anyone can change their destiny. But like all dreams that are too good to be true, there is a side that is never talked about. In this city, the 1% live in penthouses overlooking the sea, while millions more sleep on cement floors, under bridges, or in metal cubicles no bigger than a wardrobe. Inequality in Mumbai is not just an economic figure. It is a reality that is visible on every street corner. Laborers are the invisible pulse of this city. They wake up before dawn, travel for hours on crowded trains, only to work for a daily wage that barely covers a living wage. They build high-rises they will never enter. They clean mansions they can't even imagine living in. Most are migrants from impoverished villages in other states. They come with hope, but are trapped in a cycle of informal work with no legal protection, no health insurance, no employment contracts. If they get sick, they are fired. If they speak up, they are replaced. Behind Mumbai's film industry, known the world over as Bollywood, there is an invisible labor force. Underpaid extras, crew members who sleep in studios to get their shots done. They work under the glare of the lights, but are never part of the spotlight itself. Education, healthcare, and access to decent housing are elusive rights. On one side of the city, a billionaire builds a 27-story house for just one family. On the other side, a family of 5 shares a cramped, stuffy room that leaks when it rains. This inequality is no coincidence. It is the result of a system that has for too long favored the powerful and turned a blind eye to the marginalized. Yet, despite the pressures of the situation, these workers stand still. With rough hands and tired bodies, they continue to work. Not because they don't know the world is unfair, but because they have no other choice. And in this city that is constantly on the move, we must ask, is progress built on the backs of the untouchable really progress? Mumbai is a city built on the edge of the sea, but it is now sinking into a crisis of its own making. Pollution is no longer just a technical problem, but a real threat to the lives of millions. The air we breathe every day is full of invisible microscopic particles that are slowly destroying our lungs. Air pollution levels in Mumbai regularly exceed the safe limits set by the World Health Organization. But for many residents, wearing a mask is not a lifestyle, it is the only way to survive. The Arabian Sea, once a source of livelihood for local fishermen, is now filled with industrial waste and household waste. Every day, thousands of tons of waste are dumped without filtering. Plastic bottles, used rubber, medical waste. All of it flows into the sea that should be life-giving. In the monsoon season, poor drainage systems cause flooding that paralyzes the city. Streets turn into dirty rivers, homes are submerged, and diseases spread along with the unclean water. Floods are no longer a seasonal disaster, but an annual routine, a symbol of a system that has failed to anticipate the impact of greed. As development continues unabated, green spaces are slowly disappearing. Mangrove forests that once protected the coast from erosion are now being cut down to make way for real estate projects. The DNR garbage mountain, towering like a man-made hill, continues to smolder inside, emitting smoke and toxic gases that blanket the surrounding settlements. Ironically, those most affected by this environmental crisis are not city planners or developers, but the common people. Those who live on the banks of rivers, at the foot of garbage hills, on the shores of polluted seas. They live amidst the smoke and stench, because they have nowhere else to go. Mumbai's environmental crisis is not just a consequence of development. It is a reflection of the imbalance between humans and nature, between greed and sustainability. And if left to continue like this, the big question is no longer will Mumbai change, but how much longer can Mumbai survive?